Yes. Alright. So this is Tyrion here with another guide with how to play Cassandra Fortunes. So some of you guys may have seen Cassandra Fortunes make an appearance in all kinds of tournaments lately, including the Fall Open hosted by myself and Really Original, and most recently the Millenium Challenger Cup. So what I have for you today is a guide on exactly how to play this amazing deck, which has been Tier 1 for a very long time now and continues to post results in tournaments. So today I will highlight exactly what makes it work, and I will even show a replay from the Millenium Challenger Cup. So yeah, let's just start off here with the three key factors. Oh, nice. Nice. I totally set that up properly. There we go. Three key factors. In order to play Cassandra Fortunes, you have the first most important thing is board presence. So there are all kinds of low-cost creatures, specifically 2-cost creatures, that are used in Cassandra Fortunes, and the most important of these is probably the Wolf Captain. He is just an amazing 2-cost card. He has so much damage potential, and his retaliation potential with Retribution is also very, very good. So overall, what you want to do is always put creatures down when you can. You need to have some sort of damage presence on the board, and in general you want to keep tempo by having creatures in lanes where they're threatening to deal damage to your enemy. And now the second most important factor is keeping board control, and you do this by playing Broken Bridge or Altar of Asha to deal with those harder creatures. Like an Abyssal Lord can even be one-shot with an Altar of Asha, so using those fortunes can often be extremely cost-effective for you, and they can clear up lanes to help you deal a little bit more damage to your opponent. A lot of Cassandra builds also use Lightning Strike, so that's also something to consider as well. It just costs 1 extra point in Magic. Always something to consider. Lightning Strike's a very, very effective spell at 2 Magic requirement. And then you have locking the enemy. So this is probably the thing that makes Cassandra Fortunes work against so many different decks. The fact that you can use Prison to completely shut the opponent down means that they will not be able to play anything in response to what you have on the board. So if you're playing against a control deck, they're not going to be able to play any spell to clear up your creatures. If you're playing against some sort of mill deck, they're not going to be able to play all their creatures that would start milling your cards. And then you also have Wastelands, which can effectively do the same thing. You can choose to either prevent them from playing creatures, fortunes, or spells, so it's also quite nearly as versatile as Prison, although obviously Prison prevents them from playing all 3 every time. And often Cassandra decks will be recycling these, so that is the basic fundamental areas that you should focus on when playing Cassandra. Just establish a board and then keep it, and eventually you'll just slowly, or sometimes very quickly, bring the enemy down just by using Prisons and Fortunes to help reassure that. A lot of people also use Pillages. That's another good way of sort of slowing down your opponent and just keeping tempo on your side. So now that we've covered that, I'm just going to really quickly show you the deck that we are demonstrating here. So this is available on mmdocking.com. We see this is the Millenium Grand Final Game 3. This is ZergRusher's Cassandra deck. So looking at his events, he has Mana Storm to keep his creatures on the board, makes them a little bit more resistant to some AoE board clear. And then Week of Training, and that's going to affect all of these 0 and 1 by default creatures. So you know, that's quite a few creatures in his deck actually, with some Soothsayers, even 1 single Wild Griffin, and he has, you notice he has a single POW here. That's not quite the biggest deal. We see that his deck is maybe a little bit more defensive than some others. He has 2 Praetorians, this Griffin Knight, 4 Treasurers here, a Nail. So yeah, this is a very much, you know, leaning towards these 2-cost creatures here. And you know, right here there's only 11 creatures that are 3 or more. So if we get the total number of creatures, it's very, very similar to the total number of fortunes here. And by using these, they synergize so well. Mostly Imperial Devotion is one of these unique fortunes that is a must-have, along with Prison. And the fact that you're getting so many extra resources through Tithe Collectors, Crusader Treasurers, Campfires, and River of Gems means that you need some way to actually get cards back in your hand, because you're having so much money that you're actually able to play your whole hand very rapidly, which is exactly why you have these cosmic realignments, because not only do they give you a fresh set of 5 cards, they can also throw off whatever your opponent has in their hand at the same time. So we will now get into the game here, and I will show you the replay between these two very awesome players. This is from the grand finals of the Millenium Challenger Cup. If you guys weren't able to watch that, all the replays from the grand finals and half of the semifinals are posted on mmdocking.com in the replay section, so you can go get those replays for yourself, watch them whenever you like. But for now, I'm just going to be describing exactly how this deck worked for ZergRusher. And we see Troopy is playing Kelthor right there, but that's not quite so important. So turn 1 with 2 resources, we will see ZergRusher go for the aggressive play and play that Crusader Watchman just to establish tempo right away. Troopy, of course, will answer with some of his own creatures, but shutting down that Crusader Watchman right away with that Firebolt means that ZergRusher's first play already gone to waste. So what he does is he gets his Tithe Collector out, and that is one of the most important things to do early on. Once you get your Tithe Collector out, you're able to play something like a Crusader Treasurer 1 turn earlier than usual, and it just opens up a lot of options. Just even that one additional income can make a huge difference. So, and if you notice, you can actually see the hand of Troopy Chill in this replay. That's because I'm using a special program. I can provide a link for that in the description to this video, so feel free to check that out as well. It is in Russian, and I apologize for that. But here we see Troopy picked up a Forbidden Flame with his Magic Peddler. If you ever see your opponent play a Magic Peddler and they're using someone with a Fire School, always assume that it's going to be Forbidden Flame. So with that in mind, ZergRusher needs to be a little bit careful not to play his entire hand, because then it will all go to waste after a Forbidden Flame. So right here, ZergRusher 5 resources. He does have a Pillage in hand. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see him play that Pillage along with a Campfire. Or Week of Training, as we mentioned before, does affect most of his creatures, and that lets him take out that Goblin Scout. And he still has 3 resources remaining. Week of Training is one of the very, very best events, I think, for Cassandra that a lot of people don't really pay a lot of attention to, and that's mostly because it just doesn't seem that great. Like, you can just get Week of Mercenaries, it'll affect all of your creatures, but Week of Training is much more consistent, and it also can't be effectively used by too many of your opponents. So that is one reason for using it. And we see right there, ZergRusher did exactly what he needed to do, which was avoid playing into a Forbidden Flame. So instead he played a POW to deal that for sure damage, and he increased damage on his creatures with Week of Training. So he invested some points into things that would not be dying to a Forbidden Flame. So that leaves Troopy with an interesting choice. He does somewhat have a little bit of tempo here thanks to that play by ZergRusher. And Troopy decides to banish out one of those cards from ZergRusher's graveyard, play his own creature, but ZergRusher, of course, has a very, very good hand here. The Radiant Glories are one of the best creatures that a Haven player can use. It is a common creature, so all of you guys make sure you include these Radiant Glories if you are trying to play Cassandra. And that Pillage in his hand, as I mentioned, is going to be playing a role here. If you notice, Troopy is going to have 5 resources next turn, which means if a Pillage is played, he'll only be able to use 2 of those resources, and a second Pillage being brought in by ZergRusher. So now he has quite a few options. He knows that he can play Pillage 2 turns in a row and not be in danger of being Forbidden Flamed. Of course, he also has the Wolf Captain in hand, which he wants to probably get out on the board, and both of those Radiant Glories. So we'll see what ZergRusher can do to apply some board presence and at the same time deny Troopy from playing any extra cards. And he does go for 1 Pillage and 1 Radiant Glory, so now Troopy with only 2 resources can't play any of the cards from his hand, He would have otherwise been able to play a Tainted Orc, or even his Sahar Orc there, which I don't think Troopy ever got to the battlefield in this particular matchup. But yeah, here is Troopy very much just handcuffed right now, not able to play any of the cards that he really wanted to, and ZergRusher just has complete control with that second pillage in hand. He knows he can get away with playing that right now, and he won't be Forbidden Flamed. But what he is missing right now is the Soothsayer to help him fetch that prison that he really wants to play. But regardless, 2 Wolf Captains in hand, a pillage. He doesn't have a whole lot invested in the board, but he also knows that last turn when he played a pillage, Troopy had no play, so that has to be another tempting play. Up in that top row, that Radiant Glory, really not able to attack into that Vulture Rider just because it will die to Retaliation plus the attack from the Vulture Rider. Of course, he could throw a blocker in front of it, but then he can't get away with using that pillage. So he does go to try to draw a card, bringing himself down to 3 resources. So now he's just deciding if he wants to attack and deploy a creature, or if he wants to play pillage. Both options work in this case, and a lot of players may have a hard time trying to decide which is better in that case, but I think the pillage right here, obviously Troopy has no play, so that makes the pillage even stronger, but I think the pillage is the right play because it makes it so Troopy's only answer is a 3-cost creature, and ZergRusher would be retaining his board presence regardless of a 3-cost creature from Troopy's side or not. Perhaps he could have had a War Oliphant, which would have slowed down ZergRusher for sure, but even still, ZergRusher, only 3 creatures on the board means that a Forbidden Flame is not really wrecking him that much. And now, knowing that that Magic Peddler was played means that he can play this Cosmic Realignment and force Troopy to discard Forbidden Flame, and that's exactly what he does. He happens to draw into 2 Campfires as well, and that opens up a lot of options actually. He can use that Altar of Asha right now to get rid of that Vulture Rider, which he will be sacrificing his Tithe Collector to do so, so very little cost for him. That's a 1-cost creature right now that he's trading for the 6-cost. Actually, I've totally lied, as he instead went for the Crusader Treasurer. Altar of Asha also allows you to revive a creature from your graveyard, and in this case he had just discarded that Crusader Treasurer, and he decided that the extra 2 income was probably worth it. It would help him gain a pretty clear advantage, especially knowing that he's safe from Forbidden Flame after he was able to discard it. So a fairly good position for ZergRusher already. He has his income in place, which is crucial for any Cassandra build. He has only used 1 of his 3 unique fortunes, so Troopy still has a lot of those really strong fortunes to deal with, and unfortunately his best way of dealing with ZergRusher has been discarded. Now he is going to be able to play some of these tanky creatures like that War Oliphant, and ZergRusher will have to find a way to respond to those, but we see the hand of Troopy. He also lost 2 Fireballs, which is the 2nd best answer he has. So definitely an uphill battle for Troopy Chill in this game. But just keep in mind our Cassandra player not playing too aggressively. He's been pretty conservative. He's still managed to get 4 creatures on the board and have board presence this entire time against his opponent. And now with the extra 2 resources from the Treasurer, he has 10 points to spend this turn. He does see a Nail in his hand, which gives him an option there. He also sees a Soothsayer, and the Soothsayer is important because he can choose to either level his destiny this turn, so he'll be able to play a Prison, or I think Prison's actually the only 5 fortune spell that he has. I don't think he was using Wastelands, but he can also level the Might, so he can play a Nail and another Treasurer. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do. He does go for the Soothsayer play, and he pulls the Prison, and we'll see him use that right now, as he has a perfect resource amount to do so. He is attacking into that creature, so we'll see that the Griffin Knight is actually coming into play here, preventing 2 damage in retaliation, and also preventing 2 damage on the inevitable attack from Troopy. And we see how effective that Prison actually is. On this turn, Troopy can do absolutely nothing. He can't kill off any of his opponent's creatures. His Sahar Brute in the bottom row will die if it attacks, and that is one of the key creatures for Kelthor. Kelthor is a very, very common deck right now that relies on killing creatures, and even if ZergRusher had not played a Prison, if he had played something like a Wasteland, Troopy would be able to Lightning Strike one of these creatures here to kill it off, use Enraged damage to kill off the Soothsayer or something else, and then he'd also have 3 damage on his Brute in the bottom row. But we see Prison right here shutting down all of Troopy's best answers, and really he's in an absolutely terrible position just because ZergRusher had that Soothsayer. Soothsayer is again one of those important cards that you probably need in your deck in order to make it successful. And one of the special additions that was added to this deck by ZergRusher is that Griffin Knight. So you don't see that in a lot of decks, but right here, preventing that damage from the Vulture Rider, it's very situationally good. And this is actually another interesting position for ZergRusher to be in, because he has 2 creatures in hand that require 4 Might, but then he also might want to draw a card. He did decide to level up that Might so he can play his Anail, and he'll probably full heal that Crusader Treasurer in the top row, which he does, and then he plays a second Treasurer, so now he has a completely full board. He's able to banish Forbidden Flame, although banishing cards is not necessarily the most important thing when you're not running Cosmic Singularity, like ZergRusher is not. But in a lot of cases, Cassandras are running with Singularities, so Troopy might have been able to recycle that if he was playing against a different Cassandra Fortune build. But this one in particular, regardless, it doesn't even need to recycle that Prison. It still has complete board advantage. It has a full board, and Troopy with only 8 resources will actually not be able to last very much longer in this game. His guy in the top row, the Black Skull Vulture Rider, if it attacks, it will be dying off. He has that right there, the Firebolt, to kill off that first one, and we'll see him also play a POW here, and then he's going to play a Moon Phoenix, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference. Troopy is just sort of holding on here for one last turn, hoping he can get something to turn it around. ZergRusher, meanwhile, yeah, just that overwhelming dominance there, just slowly gain an advantage because of your extra income, and then punish your opponent. Take over the board, take advantage of the unique fortunes. And right here, ZergRusher actually has a very, very bad hand, so if Troopy did have something like a Forbidden Flame at this point in the game, he would actually be winning. But we see one more turn. The board is still full in favor of ZergRusher. He'll be killing off the Harpy in the bottom row, healing up one of his own creatures with a Nail, which is very, very strong in this matchup as well. And now Troopy with, now he's going to play his POW, and then the Moon Phoenix. I was 1 turn off on that one. But either way, it's all just for show, as he only has 1 HP left, and he knows that he's going to be losing it. And there is the end of the game. So that was basically a textbook example of just, it wasn't an amazing draw, it wasn't a really, really lucky draw, it was just taking advantage of any fortune income and as well any creature extra income with those tithe collectors, and even sacrificing one tithe collector just to get a Crusader Treasurer on board right away. Those small advantages end up becoming very big later on. We see right here it was 10 turns taken. It was a fairly moderate length game, I would say. Some games end at 8 turns, but then again there's a replay on the website that was 40 turns long between Cassandra and I think Hakeem. But either way, very well played. ZergRusher is the champion of the Millenium Challenger Cup. You can go check out his replays at MMDOC King. And yeah, anyways, that is the end of my guide to Cassandra, so thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.